it is easy to tip into where being too perfect or aspiring to be perfect
Yeah.
becomes a detriment and yet another source of stress, which will contribute to your total load of stress, which will contribute to a likely flare. So it's
Food anxiety.
against you. And
Yeah.
balance is the balance that's right for you, and that's part of the path and the exploration, and to try and be curious and grateful and work with your body and listen to him and her to help guide you in that balance and finding what that means for you.
Welcome to the Lupus in Community Podcast. Real stories, honest conversations, practical support, and lupus broken down in clear, simple language. Whether you're living with it, loving someone who is, or just trying to understand, this is your place. Seen, supported, stronger.
Welcome, everyone. It wasn't too long ago, just 2 weeks ago, I read your article on how you went from despair to reversing your autoimmune condition. And hey, I said, let me subscribed, went to your chat thread, and I saw you posting about getting help with starting your first live, offered to do a live with you. So I'm glad we connected. Simla, you a holistic nutritionist, right? And
Yes, Fatima, I'm so glad we connected, and here we are. I'm honored to be invited into this conversation. So I am a holistic health and nutrition coach, and I have a past as a C-level executive in corporate working in the wellness and natural products industry. So I've actually had multiple cycles through careers. I had my first practice years ago, and it was actually part of my own healing journey. It grew out of, I went back to nutrition school to learn food as medicine for myself, ended up having a practice for 10 years, and then went back to corporate. That's where I was for the last 10 years again, and then reopened my practice late last year. And I work with women and couples now, actually, using food as lifestyle as medicine to take control of their health so they can get back to feeling like themselves and get on with their big lives. And a big part of the work I do is built on my personal experience reversing multiple conditions. Lupus is my autoimmune condition that existed on a spectrum with a co-diagnosis of undifferentiated connective tissue disorder. I also was able to reverse fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue syndrome, as well as IBS that I've had lifelong since my teens, and chronic asthma and chronic bronchitis, PTSD, and the list goes on because autoimmune often rarely comes alone. It often has a lot of uninvited guests and friends. So I've been through the ringer, and I bring my entire professional background and knowledge in food and lifestyle as medicine, along with my personal journey to the work I bear with my clients.
Awesome. I know you had also wanted to introduce me. That's how we planned it. Okay. And I too actually have been in the health education field, did health coaching for almost 10 years. So we have that in common. But my educational background is in public health, community health education. So here on Substack and doing some consulting on the side, I'm doing research, translating research to community programming, and here I work with people, at least I'm trying to set up where I can build resilience for the autoimmune and lupus community through science-based research, through community, and the tools that I've built to help them build resilience. So here we are today, the first being uh, about what wellness means to us. So if you would start, what does wellness mean to you?
Certainly. So, wellness, I think, is a very fluid feeling and concept, and that it's okay that it is that way. Wellness doesn't mean you're completely free of symptoms. I consider myself fully reversed and in full remission from all of my conditions, but they're not cured per se, like genetically and in my body, those tendencies remain, and I honor them, I listen to them. So, wellness has meant different things for me in the last 20 years since the initial onset of not just the autoimmune, but other elements, other comorbidities, as they call them. Back then, the first year or so of my journey, I also forgot to mention in my quest for seeking diagnoses, which, as we probably all have lived to some extent, can take a long time to get to correct diagnoses, I was misdiagnosed and heavily treated for other things. And those medications I was given heavily ended up causing medication-induced hepatitis and pancreatitis. So my body really gave out. And so wellness literally for me meant sleeping 20 hours a day. And I couldn't walk because of my pain. And that was nerve, muscle, and connective tissue pain. And wellness also at the time meant my 15-minute daily quota of walking, and whether I used it, what I thought wisely, going to the bathroom, making it to the bus stop on the corner to go to an appointment and back, and brushing my teeth that day without my heart soaring, I couldn't breathe. And so that's the way I was able to get through the very basic functions of the day. Fast forward to literally today, what does that mean? It means knowing what feels balanced to me so that I remain in remission. And today that looked like not one, but two intensive workouts this morning, and really honoring a life and work that I love and saying yes to things that light me up and more no to things that bring me down. I know that's a really generalized statement, but it's taken me a lifetime to get good at practicing that. When I, like many others, have always been conditioned to overperforming, over delivering, being a high achiever, always pushing beyond, oh, I can do just a bit more. Sure, I can work 14-hour days and ad infinitum.
Yeah, I started telling our listeners today that wellness for me has always been working out, eating healthy, and I was doing those things, right from before I even knew what health education and health coach and lifestyle meant. I did those things naturally. And then I got surprised when I was diagnosed with lupus. And honestly, looking back, it's no surprise because a lot has changed with me. My environment changed. I had a lot of stresses, one after the other. And so during then, I had disrupted my healthy lifestyle, so to speak. And after the diagnosis, I went back to it actually, running, doing all the things I enjoyed doing even before then, and losing weight. For I had gained about 20 pounds after I moved to Nashville, where I live now. And so went back to doing all of that, lost weight, got my lupus under control, so much so that my doctor was asking, "What are you doing?" My numbers were really on the low side. And lived like that for 8 years, honestly. Was even thinking I was in remission. And then all of a sudden, boom. And being well for me when the flare came on in 2022, 2023, like you said, meant just going for my doctor's appointments, doctor after doctor, just surviving and just uh, trying to take a day at a time, and taking my medication. That was being well for me until during my recovery, where I was able to even take 5 minutes walk outside around the house. What else? Come downstairs, often leave my bedroom and go to another section of the house was a plus, was an achievement. So moving a little bit as much as I can uh, was my definition of well. And I must tell you though, when I found myself on social media and I saw all the sales on uh, lifestyle and good health and all of that, do this, don't do that, that kind of thing. That really, I can't even describe the feeling.
Yeah.
I just felt that was it for me. My expectations were shattered, because wellness has been sold to us as this glamorous thing, right? And so we can see that being well shifts, it's dynamic, right? And to see someone else's well or wellness and compare with ours, sometimes it could be a good thing as a way to reach another step in our goals, but sometimes it could be detrimental if it's not realistic for us. So I, in fact, started with the definition of the World Health Organization, where, coming from that background, we all learned that health is the complete physical, mental, and social well-being, not just the absence of disease, right?
Right.
So what happens to all the people in between? Are we left out of being well?
Right.
So I think a question to ask our listeners is, what does well mean to you? How do you maintain that well? So now I'm going to pass it over to you you were going to give examples from your clients of what that meant to them.
Yeah. As I mentioned earlier, I primarily work with folks with complex chronic conditions, primarily autoimmune, not only, and also it's not a health condition per se, but something all of us women will go through in our own way in our lifetimes is perimenopause. And the two often overlap. What we're never told, and you may not know, I'm speaking to everyone who's listening now and in the future, is that the risk of new onset or additional autoimmune goes up 4 to 5 times X with perimenopause because of the massive changes happening in our hormonal ecosystem, which affects every single system of our body, including our immune health. And so one example I can share is a client who had so many food sensitivities and undiagnosed, no specific conditions, and had gotten to where they felt afraid to eat. And I'm sharing this example because I've been there. There was there was a period early in my journey, again, the 20 years ago. It took about 7 years of acute healing for me until I reached remission. But I was testing, with sensitivities, not direct allergies, but sensitivities to over 40 different foods. And now I know with my training and looking backwards, that was a sign of not quote unquote true sensitivities, but it was because of gut dysbiosis and and what's now shorthand called leaky gut, which back then wasn't even a thing. People would whisper about it. Now it's in the medical literature and scientifically studied, and it is real. But working with them, getting to a point where keeping journals and getting super in tune with your body, what you're eating, how you're sleeping, what else you did that day. It's very a holistic method of tracking that lets you look at patterns. Patterns are key. And the first step we did that made this person feel safer and seen, which I know are big points and your pillars and what you're offering to folks, is taking stock and actually just creating a spreadsheet of things that ended up being very clear: yes foods, no foods, and maybe foods. This is without any testing. And and this person is now, we are getting the appropriate testing as well, and getting to a place where formulating the foods in the pantry and eating out and traveling that now feel safe and accessible, easy and delicious, and hopefully even fun, and back to the joy of eating, and working through this fear and the grief that came with a lot of that before, to leave that behind and evolve into this new place where, wow, I know more about myself, and so I feel more resourced and able, and not just able, I'm excited about this new phase, and that's a huge part of healing. Another client would be, let's pick a perimenopause, an autoimmune one, and that is sleeping through the night, sometimes rendering impossible when you are being woken up 5 times, with either massive hot flashes, which is true for this person, or waking up for what seems like no reason at all, and you're just wide awake like it's the middle of day. And working deep within, everything from balancing blood sugar levels to working and collaborating with their physicians, of course, as to dosages and their medications, in this case Hashimoto's, as well as menopause hormone therapy. In the US, that's referred to as HRT, or hormone replacement therapy. And also going through an elimination challenge diet in a way that fit their professional life, to bring all those pieces together and improving sleep to the point where she's sleeping 60% better 4 months in, and can see the light and can see, okay, all these incremental changes, each day is a little better, each day is a little better, and also learning what triggers that, so you know what conscious choices you can prioritize to hopefully avoid that happening again in the future, at least to a great extent.
Right. And that's what I did too. I did a lot of that. I, on my own, eliminated, of course, after the research I did, reading a lot on food, nutrition, and lupus, gut health especially. I understood that sensitivities, food sensitivities in particular, is connected to these biases, and which after my stool test actually got that result saying that I did have these viruses. And so I did the elimination. They did tell me the test did show certain foods I was sensitive to, but funny enough, it didn't show what I thought I was sensitive to, like the corn, and it didn't show on the test, but I know for myself that if I ate those during a flare, my skin just shows up on my skin. I also eliminated gluten because of how I felt when I ate, your typical bread, even if it's the whole grain, organic type, I still felt off. when I ate them. So that and dairy was also on my no list. And so I did that for a long time, honestly. And this is within that 8 years I was telling you when I felt good and everything. My numbers stabilized or went lower. My lupus activity was low then. My next question here is, how do you not fall into the perfectionist trap? We talked about earlier about what is it? The term you mentioned,
where we all risk tipping over into unhealthy territory with so-called perfectionism, because as we all know,
yeah,
perfect doesn't really exist. But
Mhm.
since it came up and it has been so fundamental for both of us and my clients, the elimination challenge diet is and remains the gold standard for identifying true reactivity to foods. This is proven through scientific studies that the tests at best at this point, I would say, are adjunct, and you can bring them into context, but unless you actually go through an elimination and then a reintroduction and challenge diet, your results are likely going to be incomplete at best and misleading at worst. And so just tuck that away somewhere if you've never explored that potential pathway. For anyone listening, it's huge. I can share with you my personal journey with gluten. I never tested positive as a celiac for gluten, but I had all the symptoms. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I refused the invasive test where they go and look at the villi in your colon to look for damage and such, because I knew what I felt. It was undeniable.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah, so I am what's called subclinical celiac. I'm a celiac who just doesn't show up on the tests that are available today, and that's okay with me. I don't need validation. Gluten is the one thing I absolutely do not eat because I know what it does to my body. If I accidentally have a little bit here, okay, like I'll sleep it off because within 15 minutes I am down.
Mhm.
I am exposed to it even without knowing consistently, my pain, my flares all start coming back. So that's that. Tuck that away. And in terms of perfectionism, since we're talking about the food example here, which is such a big part of autoimmune, not just to identify what you're reacting to, but to, on the flip side, ensure that you are eating in a nutrient-dense way to really, really nourish your body and all the mechanisms it needs to bring itself back into balance. That's such a critical element of healing. When on that journey, it's super easy because we're human, and this comes with emotions and fear and good intentions of, I want to be disciplined, I want to do this right, I want to make sure I'm 100% so I heal as fast as possible. Healing takes time, and it's too easy to flip over into something called orthorexia as just one of what can show up. And orthorexia is when healthy eating becomes disruptive to your life and to your psyche and starts affecting you negatively, whether it's mental health, emotional health, and also undernourishment, not eating enough.
Right.
And so there is a very fine line there. And instead, I encourage folks to be curious and to do your best and perhaps pick the top things you really, really shouldn't be eating because your body told you so. 20 years ago, there were really no easy gluten-free options. Today,
Yeah, now there's so many.
right? That's just one
There's
example.
so
You can eat highly nutritiously. Even if, say, you truly do best eliminating gluten altogether or dairy, which I had to eliminate for many years. I'm okay now, depending on the type of dairy. And I was allergic. I actually had hives and a IgE reaction to eggs for 7 years. I keep saying 7 years because that was my deep healing window where I was healing my gut and everything else, pretty much every bodily system. And once that happened, I could eat eggs again. So also know that it's not forever. So if you are inflamed and in your state of acute or prolonged flare or symptomatic right now, and you're being more careful, more contained in terms of your choices, that doesn't mean it's forever. My gluten will be forever, for example, but I enjoy eggs today. I eat them several times a week. I don't push it. I don't have like 14 eggs a week, but I have like 4. And I'm totally fine with it. So I'm sharing my example as an open book to, what may or may not serve as examples for you. But it is easy to tip into where being too perfect or aspiring to be perfect becomes a detriment and yet another source of stress, which will contribute to your total load of stress, which will contribute to a likely flare. So it's
food anxiety
against you.
Yeah.
And balance is the balance that's right for you, and that's part of the path and the exploration, and to try and be curious and grateful and work with your body and listen to him and her to help guide you in that balance and finding what that means for you.
Absolutely. And, I had a bit of food anxiety when I had a lupus flare, but now I don't, honestly, because I brought back everything, but I eat them very in small quantities, except for gluten. That one is almost a no-no. We talked about gluten and, you mentioned leaky gut. That's what they call intestinal permeability now, right? And like you said, they are using the term leaky gut in papers now too. I recently went to a lupus conference organized by Lupus Foundation of America last week. And a doctor there from Vanderbilt University was talking about clinical trials on foods, trying to figure out lupus patients do better on. And she mentioned that a vegan diet is a no-no. Have you heard about that?
That's interesting you point that out. So yes, and here's why. I actually tried to be a vegan for a while because that's where my heart is. My body said no. I believe this is where that likely came from. I literally just got a research update yesterday for the autoimmune community, professional community I'm part of. So I'm also a certified autoimmune protocol coach. And so 20 years ago, we knew this elimination, reintroduction challenge diets, that they worked, and we created our own versions and walked our clients through. I did that for 10 years, stepped away, and in the 10 years I was away back in corporate, what happened is this amazing professional community came together and actually fast forward to today, there is this formal certification process as well as now scientific studies conducted along with a number of universities and clinics that prove hence the efficacy of the elimination challenge diet and why it remains the gold standard. They've done all the testing, compared it to all the other versions of testing, and realized where they rank. So back to the question, is veganism a no-no for autoimmune?
Yeah.
It's very challenging to be a vegan, unfortunately, and remain highly nutrient dense and nourished as your body needs to heal on a vegan diet, while following the protocols that both science and empirical evidence, clinical evidence, are showing works well for remediating autoimmune. And can you be a vegetarian though? Yes.
There are a lot of people that are.
Yes, and that's possible. You can make the vegetarianism work. But veganism, when you also take out eggs and you also take out dairy, but you once you test them and know if you can bring them back, because something that is counterintuitive to mass media and the messaging we've been fed, which is so incomplete and of disservice, is that meat is bad for you. And I know that a lot of folks are not vegetarian or vegan just because of that, or anything. There is that many wonderful reasons why someone wants to choose to be vegetarian and vegan. But there are, scientifically, technically speaking, nutrients that are so rich in animal foods that you can manage on a vegetarian diet and cobble together and ensure you have the coverage. You have to be even more particular about how you eat. That you simply, when you do all the calculations and look at the objective data, is not possible to achieve on a vegan diet, unfortunately.
This is the last point I wanted to make. What works in living well with lupus and chronic illness, or even generally? But I want to say that for people living with chronic illness and autoimmune condition, the Mediterranean diet has been championed. Did highlight that it was the Mediterranean diet that was found to work. Having a balanced meat and fish, but mainly plant-based. When we say mainly, doesn't mean vegan, right? Doesn't mean vegetarian either. But so having whole grains as part of it, we as individuals need to find out which foods trigger what in us, right? And avoid them or limit them. And so this is where I come to end our conversation on what works best. And if you were to leave a message to our listeners today, what would that be?
Great question. I'll preempt it by saying it is highly individual. I believe in bioindividuality. I also believe it is all about mind, body, and spirit. And it comes down to coming back to your center, coming back to listening to your body. And as an example, I have 3 pillars I do not compromise on. And that allows the rest of my life to be bigger and freer and more beautiful and joyful. In no particular order, because they all work off of each other. Sleep. I am a champion sleeper. I had to figure out how to be one. Number 2, eating a clean, whole foods-based diet and being gluten-free. I am Mediterranean. I grew up on the Mediterranean home cooked diet, but I still got ill. Why? Because chronic high levels of stress for 10 plus years in my first decade in corporate, I forget to eat. And I had to retrain myself how to eat. I have hypoglycemia. So we all are different that way. So,
right.
And then number 3, drama is not welcome in my life.
Stress management.
Oh, yeah. And I make choices accordingly. Having a growth, and from the very beginning, not, and this is part of drama to me, my definition, no victim mentality. We are not victims here. We are experiencing life.
Yep.
Life is lifing. Everybody has their thing. Everybody carries some kind of burden or another. And it's more about, okay, this is happening. So how can I rally around this for my best self and my best health? And what do I do next? What is the one next step I can commit to with good faith and honor that? So those are my 3 pillars as an example. And some of them are really boring.
These are wonderful.
I say no to things I, in the past, would have always said yes to, even though I didn't want to. I pace myself. I've recognized I have a certain commitment level across a course of a day, a course of a week, course of a month, that if I push too hard, I get closer to flaring again. So again, I'm 20 years into this. It comes with time, and it comes with, once again, coming back to yourself.
Center. Yes, thank you so much for such a beautiful conversation. And from me, I say, find what works for you, be happy, and keep it simple. Thank you for joining. Till next time.
That's our episode. Thank you for showing up. Your presence here matters. Share this with someone who needs it. Leave a review and find us on Substack or wherever you listen to podcasts. Your reviews help us reach more of the community. Until next time, stay rooted, seen, supported, stronger.